So seeing as Christmas is right around the corner, aren't you excited? Because I am. I thought I'd share with you today my bookish wish list. So these are the books I really want to read. Number 1 on this list is 172 Hours on the Moon by Johan Harstad. I haven't actually read an extensive summary on this book yet. I only know that it is about the NASA making some kind of a lottery where 3 teenagers are picked to go to the moon. And basically all 3 of them have things that they want to escape in their life, and so they participate and win the lottery, and then they go to the moon and have adventures, and they're kind of in danger up there. And I don't really know what happens exactly, but it sounds really intriguing. It sounds really freaking interesting. And personally, I think to me it would be the scariest thing ever to be stuck in outer space with no way to get back to Earth, or with, like, I don't know, being in dangerous situations outside of this planet. Like, I don't think I would ever go outside of this stratosphere because I just die of anxiety. Anyway, this book has received a 3.62 rating on Bookreads, and it just sounds super freaking awesome, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. Next, we have a book that only came out this year, at least I think so. It's called The Coldest Girl in Coldtown by Holly Black. And I know that Holly Black has written a bunch of books, and I haven't actually read any of them, so I thought this one might be a good start. And it is about a girl who lives in a world where there are cities called cold towns. They're kind of isolated from other parts of the world, and like monsters live alongside humans in there, and it's kind of a really dangerous place to be. And yeah, if you enter a cold town, you can never ever leave again. And the protagonist basically just wakes up one day after a party with everybody who she was with, like, being massacred and lying in, like, as corpses around her, except for herself, her ex-boyfriend, and another boy. And to save themselves, they have to go to one of those cold towns, even though that's really freaking dangerous, and as I said, they could never ever leave again. So I just think it sounds really creepy. It sounds really interesting as well, because I don't know, we don't know what happened, and it just sounds all around like a really good premise for a book. It has actually received a 3.92 rating on Goodreads, which is not too bad, and I actually have heard a lot of good things about this book from other YouTubers, so I really can't wait to give this one a shot. Number 3 on my list is a book called Ink by Amanda Sun. It is the first in a series called Paper Gods, and it's about a girl called Katie, and she has to move to Japan because of some tragic events that happened back in her hometown. I'm not sure, I think something to do with her family, like someone died, I believe. Anyway, she has to move to Japan, and she's really not that happy about it. She is really overwhelmed by the culture. She can't really click with anybody there. Anyway, in Japan she meets a guy called Tomohiro, and he seems to have some sort of connection to the ancient gods in a way, and has strange powers that seem to be enhanced by her presence there. And if the wrong people find out about his powers, he might be in danger. And it just sounds all around like a freaking awesome story with some love story thrown in there as well. And as you guys know, I love Japan. I cannot wait to read this book. Like, literally, this is probably the number 1 book out of all of those that I just want to read, because it just sounds so freaking fascinating. And it has received a 3.68 rating. So again, not too bad, and yeah, oh my god, I can't wait to read this book. I really can't. Next, we have another book that has been, like, talked about a lot on BookTube this year, because again, I think it came out this year. Might be wrong, don't quote me on that. It is called Pivot Point. Pivot Point is the first in a series by Kasie West, and it is about a girl who can look into the future whenever she needs to make a choice, and she will see all outcomes of that specific choice. Yeah, that sounds like her life must be super easy, but when her parents get divorced and she has to decide who she wants to live with, she has to make a decision that seems to have, like, really strange outcomes, because there's a love story in either of those outcomes, and there's terrible things happening in either of those outcomes. So she just kind of has to make a really tough decision, like, who does she want, and what can she get through? Like, what kind of tough situations does she think she can handle? And it just sounds really interesting as well. I am very intrigued by this strange, like what appears to be a love triangle, because she doesn't even know those guys yet, but she has to pick one already, and it just sounds like, I don't know, it just sounds interesting. Interesting. This is the word of the day today, I think. It just does, and it has received a really good rating of 4.18 stars on Goodreads. And I know that, who was it? I think it was it Catastic? It might have been Catastic who talked about this and said it was such a good book. So, cannot wait to read this one either. Number 5 on this list is a book called Incarnate by Jodi Meadows. It is also the first in a series, and it is about a world where everybody's souls is constantly being reincarnated, and everybody remembers their past lives, and they all live together, kind of probably knowing each other really well because they just keep spending lives together. And it's about a girl called Anna who is born, and she is new, which means that she has never lived before, and when she was born another soul passed away, and that's something that has never happened, like really passed away, and it's something that has never happened before, and so she's kind of viewed as an outcast in society, and just a lot of problems start to arise from that, and it just sounds like a really awesome world with a lot of fantastical and interesting, again, elements, kind of like a fairy tale in a way, I think. So I'm all about that. I love fantasy stories in general, and this one just sounds really appealing to me. It's 3.79 stars rating on Goodreads, also made it sound really promising and just an obvious pick for this list. Next we have Drowning Mermaids, a book by Nadia Scrieva that is about a underwater kingdom, kind of caught up in a war, and so the princess has to flee this place and travel to Alaska to kind of regroup and figure out how to save her kingdom and how to save her people. And there she runs into a successful fisherman who has built his own empire, and she kind of goes undercover a little bit, I think, and she kind of pretends to be a dancer for him or something like that. I don't really know, but I just love the idea of an underwater kingdom. I just love mermaid stories, and this one just sounded super freaking awesome. Number 7 on this list is So Much Pretty by Cara Hoffman. I believe I actually looked at this book before in store but didn't pick it up for some reason. Probably didn't like the cover or something, I don't know. This book is about a typical girl next door that lives in a rather small town, and one day she just goes missing, and her case remains unsolved. And when her body finally does turn up, no one really seems to be kind of caring anymore, except for a journalist who tries to kind of find out what happened, and he publishes an article that a 15-year-old girl reads, and she's apparently really smart, she has a really high IQ, and so she kind of tries to figure out what happened to this girl as well. So both of them, the journalist and the girl, try to figure out what happened, and separately, and it just sounds like a really, really interesting crime thriller type of thing. I'm into that a lot. I love watching crime shows on TV. I like reading psychological thrillers that just make me feel like, oh my god, the world is such a horrible place. I love those that just keep me on the edge of my seat, and I'm really hoping that this will be one of those. Next, we have a book that was recommended to me by my best friend, who also told me to go read Gone Girl, which turned out to be one of the best decisions I could have made, so this obviously made it onto this list, and it's called The Other, Typist by Suzanne Rindell. This book is set in 1924 in New York City, and it centers around Rose, who is a typist at a police precinct. And one day, they get a new typist, and her name is Odile, and the entire precinct basically really seems to be under her spell, and even Rose really connects with her really well, and the two develop a friendship that then starts to turn into some kind of an obsession, and there seems to be something that Odile is hiding from people, and it just sounds like an all-around kind of psychological, maybe thriller, I don't know. I'm not sure where the story might go, and that's exactly why I can't wait to read it. My friend told me that it's one of those books that just sit there screaming at the pages, and for me, I love those the best. It can really mess with your mind and make you feel all the emotions. I feel like it's always the best thing when a book can make things seem so tangible that you just can't help but let them bother you, even though you know they're not actually real. So I just really, really, really want to read this book now. Like, really bad. Next, we have Horns by Joe Hill, who I believe is actually somehow related to Stephen King. Not sure. I keep throwing facts out there that might be completely wrong. But for some reason, I thought that he was. Look it up. Anyway, this book is about a man who was used to a very, very comfortable lifestyle. Like he came from money and he had just a very easy life in general. Until his girlfriend was raped and murdered and he became the prime suspect in her case. The case was never resolved and he was never cleared nor convicted, but in the eye of the public, because of his upbringing, he's still viewed as guilty, and so that just really bothers him. And one day he wakes up with horns on his head, and it turns out that he has some strange new powers now, and he uses those powers to try and figure out who actually murdered his girlfriend. He feels like he's been forsaken by God, basically, so now he kind of turns to the devil, and over the course of the book, I believe he actually turns into the devil. That might have been a spoiler. I don't know. I was told that by Anna Kana on her book club, so I don't know. I don't know, but it just sounded so fascinating. This just seems like the perfect setup to really explore a person's psyche, a person who was traumatized by a death and who was falsely accused, and who now feels basically like the entire world is turned against him, and now it just turns to what is left, and that's evil, basically. So that just sounds like such a fascinating concept and such a fascinating setup that I just, oh my god, I don't even want to live another day without reading this book. Horns, by the way, has a 3.9 rating on Goodreads, so that's not too bad either. And lastly, we have All Our Yesterdays by Cristin Terrill. This book is about a girl called M who is imprisoned in a secret military base, and all she has is a list that was written in her own hand but that she never actually remembers writing. And on it are instructions on how to prevent the creation or invention of a time machine. The list is incomplete, so what she does is she keeps trying and trying to find out how to actually prevent the invention of time travel. But so far, all her attempts have ended with her being back in that prison with the same list. So apparently she didn't succeed. And there is a second protagonist basically that we follow, and her name is Marina, who is so in love with her best friend James, but someone's trying to kill James, and so she's trying to figure out who and how to prevent him from dying, I guess. So that's what I've gathered from this book, and it just sounds so interesting. I love all things sci-fi, and I like the idea of having to do the same, basically do the same thing over again, having that one moment where here you have choices, pick one, do that, fail, go back to that one moment in time and try the second thing, then the next, and then the next, and then the next. And that's just so, in a way, creepy, but also really awesome. This book has received a 4.11 rating on Goodreads, so apparently all the readers liked it as well. I mean, that's just fantastic. So I can't wait to get my hands on this one. That is it for my bookish wish list. You guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave your own bookish wish list down below, or let me know if you've read any of the books on my list and what you thought of them. And have a lovely week. If I don't see you before Christmas, Merry Christmas to all of you, and I love you very much. Bye! And it is the first one in the Pivot Point series. That was written by, I don't fucking remember.